Okay, our new lesson is on confidence intervals, and a confidence interval is just dealing with the stuff we've already talked about. It's kind of, you just need to interpret the language. So for example, for this example, if we did a survey of students in the school, we found out that 78% decided they'd like to keep a vending machine instead of removing it. Sometimes they'll give you the data as a sentence like this, saying 78% of the students want to keep it, and the poll is accurate to be within 2.5%, 19 times out of 20. So we have to be careful of a couple of definitions. So the first one is the confidence interval. It has to do with how many people are actually going to say yes, the majority of the people. So what we would do is we take that 78% and we have to add and subtract the 2.5%. So that means we would have, if we subtract 2.5, we get 75.5. We add the 2.5, we get 80.5. Okay, so that means the majority of our data, the majority of the people, if we were to redo this poll again, should be between 75.5% to 80.5%. So that is our confidence interval. The confidence range is that plus or minus 2.5%. Let's suppose I was asking, suppose there was 500 people in the school, then we could actually figure out how many people we would expect to say yes to this. So we would go 75.5%, so 0.755 times 500, and that gives us roughly 377 people. And if we go 0.805 times 500, that gives us about 403 if we round them off. So that means our confidence level, or confidence in terms of actual people, we should get between 377 and 403 people would say yes to the vending machine. So these two ranges are the same, just one's in percent and one's in number of people. The only other bit of data that's given is the confidence level, and the confidence level is the 19 times out of a 20. So when it asks for what is the confidence level, basically we're saying 19 times out of 20 we should get these results. So if we actually do that as a percentage, 19 out of 20 is 95%. So that means our confidence level is 95. So if we think of it in terms of our normal curve, remember 95% range was within 2 standard deviations. So 95% of the data is between -2 and +2 z-score. So that means the majority of our data, 95% of our people, or 95% of the time, we should get between 75 and 80, or 377 to 403 people. So they're pretty basic questions. It's a little bit confusing in the terminology. So just remember, when you're doing your confidence interval, it's the plus or minus part. And if they want the actual number of people, you need to multiply it by the number of people. And then the confidence level is just how many times out of 100 or 20 or whatever it could be written as. So the confidence level, there's typically 3 different ways they do it. So they'll write it as a percentage, so we could just say a confidence level of 90%, or sometimes they'll say it as like 9 out of 10 people, right? Or we did this last one, we said 19 out of 20, which was a confidence level of 95, which is typically our most common. Or sometimes they'll say 99 times out of 100, or 99%. So you remember, in terms of 99%, really what that is from 3 standard deviations. From -3 to +3 is 99% of the data. So they're just giving it a little bit wider standard deviation, so we have more confidence that our data is going to be in that whole portion of the graph. But typically for most questions and most surveys, they usually use about 95%. One other thing is when we have our plus or minus number. So for that last example, we looked at a plus or minus of 2.5%. Okay, if our survey is small, so if we only survey 10 people, it's not going to be very accurate. And typically our plus or minus would be a big number. Okay? If we do a really large survey, right, so if we surveyed out of 500 people in a school, if we surveyed like 300 of them, so if we do a really large survey, we'll typically get a really small percent. So our plus or minus will be really small, and we typically would say it is very accurate. So the larger our data sample is, the better it is. So let's suppose if we were to survey 10 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people, which one would give us the best data? The 1,000 people. The larger the survey, the better it is, and typically we'd get like a really small percentage. Where if we only survey 10 people, it's not going to be very accurate. We might have something like plus or minus 8.5 or something like that. So the bigger the group, the smaller the plus or minus number, the better the survey is. And that's all.